This week on Faces of Florence, Carson Cawthon. Hope. We all need hope, and today's episode gives us some precious insight into the hope that lives in the heart and mind of a young college student who has something important to say.
Hey, welcome. We're so glad you found us. Radio Free is a 24-hour Christian mixed radio station broadcasting right here out of Florence, South Carolina. So when you're driving around town, remember to tune it in to 92.5. And if you're outside of the Florence area, you can listen 24 hours a day at radiofree.cc.
Carson Cawthon, welcome to Faces of Florence. This is our new video series, and the idea is simple, just to get to know our neighbors. We're called to love our neighbors. Got to know them to love them, you know? So, and I suppose you don't have to be cool and interesting to be on the show, but when we have someone who is cool and interesting like yourself, it just makes it that much more exciting. So I'm glad to have you here. You are a very talented young writer, but I think that's just a piece of your puzzle. And so we're going to get to know a little bit about that today. Let's just start with the basics. Tell us a little bit about you, where you were born and raised, and those sort of things.
Sounds good. Hello. My name's Carson Cawthon. I was born and raised right here in Florence, South Carolina. I am a writer, lover of words, a big reader. I have a little segment here on Radio Free, the Cultural Reset, that I just absolutely adore. I am a daughter and a friend and a sister and a freshman right now at Anderson University, and I just love it there.
Well, we're going to be following your career through college as you go. Like you said, you've kind of partnered with Radio Free and brought us this Cultural Reset segment that's so great. We'll add some links to that in the description of this video when it comes out. But your college situation has been very interesting, and I want to get to that here in a minute. But let's talk a little bit about growing up here in Florence, and maybe take us through a little bit about when you got the bug of writing, when you knew you were a wordsmith.
Oh, absolutely. So, yep, like I said, I grew up right here in Florence. I grew up in New Spring Church. Absolutely love my family there. And I have always been a big reader, so I really think that is the basis of a lot of writers. They started as readers.
Sure, yeah.
And so I have always loved words. I had a teacher in the second grade. Her name is Miss DeBose, a mighty woman of the Lord, incredible lady, absolutely adore her. And she really took it upon herself to invest in me so much. She would email my parents different things that she thought I needed. She emailed my parents and said, "This girl needs a camera. She's artistic." And so they got me a camera. And so they said, "This girl is a writer. You need to get her books." And so they got me books. And so she just took it upon herself. Even after I left her class in the second grade, for as long as I was at that school, she would bring me books. She thought I would really enjoy books that she was reading that she wanted to share with me. And so I am just really grateful for her investment in me. And I think it was her. She started my love of creativity and photography or different design things that I use on my own blog. She started my love of words. I mean, an incredible, incredible woman who I'm so grateful for today.
Well, like you said, it was an investment, and there's a type of person who I think really recognizes talent and something special in people and are willing to invest their time and effort into those people. I think you're one of those people. And you're a young woman. You're finding your way. You're learning. But I feel like you're going to have that same impact on a lot of people. And I'm really excited about that. And you sharing that with our listeners on Radio Free with the Cultural Reset. But also, like you said, you write a blog on a regular basis. Tell us a little bit about that. What was the inspiration behind that, and where can people find that?
Absolutely. So the inspiration behind that was the Holy Spirit when he told me to start a blog, and I said, "No thanks, I'll pass. I think I'm good with my journal." So I'm a big journaler, but I was like, publishing my thoughts and feelings, doesn't that sound fun? And so it actually all began when my washing machine broke and we had to go to the laundromat for about 5 hours every Saturday. And the laundromat, if you've ever been, is just mostly waiting for your clothes to finish so you can switch them over. But you have to be there the whole time that your clothes are in the wash. And so I would be at the laundromat for about 5 hours every Saturday. And the Lord was like, all right, what else do you have to do? And so God perhaps broke my washing machine so that I would have to finally start this vlog that he had been really convicting me and pressing on me to start for a few years at this point.
Sometimes it takes a whale swallowing you. Sometimes it takes your broken washing machine.
I
right?
know,
whatever. However
God
it gets
is a mysterious man who uses mysterious ways.
True.
So that is the birth of the blog, actually. But I'm just really passionate about it. It's something I enjoy. I'm an English and digital studies major at AU, so I'm learning a lot that is very applicable to the blog, which brings me a lot of joy. You can find it at carsoncawthon.com. And we have a lot of fun over there.
Yeah, we'll add a link to that in the description as well. But let's talk about the content of the blog then, Carson, because you said you felt God's push specifically. Usually when that's the case, it's not about fame or, hey, how many followers can I have? Or, there's something bigger there. And obviously you sensed that. What do you think that is?
I think the purpose of the blog is really to connect to people, specifically girls who believe in God, who go to church, and who have no idea what that actually means for their lives. And because I think God might have called me to this because this is something I grew up in the church. Like I know the language. I know the ideas. Like I didn't need anyone to explain that to me. I needed to know where God was in the midst of my battle with mental health. I needed to know where God was on a Tuesday in the halls of Wilson High School. I needed to know where God was in my dating relationship. Things that I felt like no one was specifically addressing. I needed someone to bridge the gap between Sunday mornings, Wednesday nights, and my actual life. And so I just started writing how I felt like God was bridging the gap. And hopefully that would be of some help to someone else.
Well, I believe it is, and I believe it's going to continue to be. Doing something like that takes a lot of vulnerability. Let's talk about that because the stuff I've read of yours and the stuff even that you share on the Cultural Reset is very vulnerable, and that's so important right now in this moment in life and beyond. Mm-hmm. And I just applaud you for doing that. But tell me what that was like. You said you pushed back for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
But then when you broke through and you began sharing these deep things?
I mean, I am not going to pretend that there's not a vulnerability hangover. That is a real thing where you kind of just want to crawl in a hole afterwards. But what I've experienced is that, first of all, just knowing not doing what God has for me is always going to be harder than doing what God has for me because he is always going to, you can't keep going like that for long. And so first of all, that's a lot of the motivation, but also just hearing from people and knowing that I am not alone as well as that they are not alone, just that connection has been so incredibly motivating that if I don't want to do it anymore, just knowing that I'm not alone makes it feel a lot less vulnerable. And so over time, I think that if we are all willing to be vulnerable, these things won't feel so scary. Yeah. And I think we just need to do that. And if I can be the first one to do it, I will absolutely go if it means someone else can share. And that over time, these won't be issues that are so intimidating. Well,
tell me how you are taking that with you to college, because that's a whole different ballgame. And, you had I think an unusual high school situation, but college, you're stepping into a whole different thing. But you seem really healthy to me right now. And this is after your first semester. And I know it was a struggle for you. So let's talk a little bit about that. Tell me a little bit about what some of your challenges were, taking this vulnerable self up there, and then also maybe some of the things that you didn't expect that came across your path while you were there.
I absolutely do not want to downplay how difficult it was. This was an incredibly hard season, but I agree with you. I feel like the Lord and people have really just locked arms with me in this. And so I am grateful that you are right. I feel really healthy right now because of what the Lord and people have done for me. I would say getting to know people was hard for me, which I didn't expect. But having such deep roots here in Florence, I haven't had to begin a relationship from scratch in a long time.
You seem like a people person.
Yeah.
But,
no, I like people.
But you have kind of a shell, you think, that you had to... Yeah,
for sure, because I have had such amazing, deep, lifelong friends. Truly, my entire life since I was living in Florence. And so going into this new environment and meeting people from scratch who don't know who I am, who like what I enjoy, and it was a whole new ball game for me. And so there was a bit of time where I just wanted to say the most vulnerable thing I could possibly think of, which is not a great idea, but like I'll be like, just let me tell you everything so we can truly get to that level. And that's where the advice to really just walk in and focus on getting to know the other person and serving them well for whatever period of time I have with them was so helpful, because I felt like I just wanted to be known so badly. I wanted to be connected. I wanted to belong so desperately. And really what it took was looking to serve other people for that connection, instead of going to other people and being like, how can I make you know me as quickly as possible?
Well, that's exciting, man, that you understand these things. Because I think a lot of people at your age just haven't even started digging there. And all right, so you were able to back off from vulnerability overload, and then you started building some new friends. You have some new people. Tell me a little bit about that.
It's
those
been
relationships.
So good. So the thing about college is that there's so many opportunities. Especially I was in the IB program in high school, which is so small. I think by the time we finished, it was like 25 of us. Like it was incredibly small.
Again,
and I'd been with them
friends.
And I'd been with them for 6 years at that point. And so, and there weren't many new things, weren't many surprises. I'd done it. I'd been through it. Like it was comfortable and it was so good for the time. And then going to college where there's so many opportunities and so many different just routes you could take, that I kind of got option overload a little. And so choosing a few things to really invest in and then serve there was critical for making friends. So we have RUF, Reformed University Fellowship at Anderson, and I'm in the Anderson Honors Program. We have a really great church at AU called Christ Reformed that I love so dearly.
It's there on the campus?
No, but just in Anderson. And a bunch of AU students go there.
Gotcha.
And so that was really good, just picking a few things to invest in. Again, that focus on serving, just meeting people to love them and not to be known. That's really where I met some truly dear friends. And my boyfriend, Jared, and his older sister, Jessica, two of my dearest friends as well, are there. And so it's been such a joy to be near them for this time.
Well, speaking of your boyfriend, Jared, and this is supposed to be kind of an evergreen content. So if someone watched this 2 years from now, it would still be relevant. We're gonna think that's gonna still be relevant. Then, who knows? But let's talk a little bit about Jared. And you've been very forthright about dating. You've taken that very seriously, and you are saying things that I wish someone had said to my daughter a long time ago. And I know that's the same for probably most parents watching this. That someone who is very discerning at a young age. Tell me a little bit about that and maybe what that looks like now that you guys are in college.
Absolutely. So to begin with, I'm an Enneagram 3, if that helps anyone, just for some context. And so being known, being seen, being noticed has been incredibly important to me in my past. And so when that comes to dating, it was really difficult because I needed to get beyond just wanting to be seen. I needed to build something, build a relationship with a good foundation. And so that took a lot of discernment.
That doesn't happen a lot in this age group.
No, and it was so hard.
Which is a
It was
shame.
really hard.
Yeah.
And so what it came to was I had to say, Lord, if I'm going to date someone, I'm going to have to not be worried about how they see me and about if they're noticing me, but instead be focused on how they're loving you first and how I can come behind that. And that took a while. It took some waiting. It took a lot of time, a lot of patience, and a lot of trust. But my relationship with Jared has really grown my relationship with the Lord, which is how it's been such a blessing. Relationships are incredibly sanctifying to try and work in partnership with another person for all of life. And so that's been incredibly helpful. The transition to college was very hard for us. And I kind of expected it, but I would share that with anyone very openly because I think it should be expected that it would be a really difficult transition. Yeah. And I don't want that to feel like weird or like scary, that it would be a really hard transition. We had a lot of changing expectations coming into college that we had to say, okay, these are some ground rules. These are some non-negotiables, like about how much time we would spend together if we had all the option to spend together, about just rules for physical boundaries, rules for hanging out with mixed gender groups of people, where it could become, oh, you like these friends so much more than you like me. And so just setting our ground rules for that. For instance, I'll give one practical example is that if either of us are hanging out with a mixed gender group of people, we'll always invite the other person. They don't have to come. Okay. They can say no and you can go, but just inviting them, giving them the courtesy of knowing like what you're doing so it's not going to be like, oh my goodness, you were hanging out with so-and-so without me knowing. Yeah. It's just small things like that have really been crucial for us in making the transition. And also counseling. I talk about counseling all the time, but counseling is so helpful in relationships. And I think that's honestly what has gotten Jared and I through. And I would say on the other side of this, we're better than ever because we went through that journey, but it was very hard.
How long have you guys been together now?
2 years now.
Wow. Congratulations.
Yay.
That's awesome. Well, let's take a turn into counseling. Like you said, you mentioned that a lot. You talk about that a lot in your cultural reset segments. There is a stigma, obviously, with mental health issues that I feel like is starting to crumble, which is fantastic.
For sure.
And people like you are helping that. But let's talk a little bit for maybe the person who's, and especially in church culture, as you know, there's a lot of kind of hesitance to talk about that sort of thing. It's more of like just take it to God and you'll be fine. And but can you talk to whoever's maybe sitting on the fence with counseling and thinking, I just need to pull up my boots and go. You know, talk about that a little bit.
First, I would just say that the idea of counseling is very biblical. I would say that counseling wasn't invented in the time of the Bible, so you're not going to find a verse about it. You are going to find plenty of verses about getting wisdom from elders, about confessing your sins and receiving complete healing in the presence of other wise people.
Sounds a lot like counseling. Huh?
Yeah, sounds an awful lot like counseling. And so, first of all, that would be my encouragement to someone in the church, that counseling is a biblical idea, that it's a good idea. A Christian counselor can help you grow in your relationship with the Lord in maybe a different way than anything else could. So I'd absolutely encourage you to do that. Secondly, I would probably just say that it's a lot more common than you think. So common, especially on college campuses. I mean, the amount of people going to counseling on my college campus, Christian Baptist college campus, it's so common. It's almost the norm to go to counseling, because I think sadly our generation has been affected a lot more by anxiety, particularly maybe with the rise of social media. For our generation, we were born with technology.
I can't imagine.
And so anxiety and depression, suicidal thoughts, so very common on the AU campus and all college campuses. AU is even specifically a Christian one, like I mentioned. And so I would encourage you, counseling is becoming much more normal, much more acceptable. I feel very free to talk about it now because I have I've just received a lot of encouragement and the fact that it's not so different anymore.
So when you're introducing yourself to people and you're meeting people and you're wanting to be known, do you feel a bit of a concern about letting them know too much about it because you'll feel like you'll be judged for that particular thing? Or
I definitely think I used to. I think as I've grown and gotten to know more people, I feel freer to acknowledge these parts of my life because I know that if they are not willing to be vulnerable or to go there with me, that might not be a friendship I would even want to engage in the first place. And so that's really hard. Counseling has taught me that sometimes not everyone is going to be for you, and that's hard for me, especially as a believer. If I think that my job is to make everyone like me, that's just not true.
Right.
My job is to love everyone, but it's not to make everyone like me. And so really just being vulnerable, like you mentioned before, and opening up these parts of my life to others has been really helpful. And if they don't reciprocate that or they don't appreciate that or feel weird about that, then it's okay. I can love them, but they don't have to be my best friend.
that's not on you at that point, right? Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk about the future, Carson.
Mm-hmm.
No one has a crystal ball. There's only so much you can know. But if you had your way with the studies that you've engaged in, where do you see yourself when you get out of college, and where do you think you're headed after that?
No, I would love to work in publishing. That is the dream. I definitely would plan to keep up the blog, to keep working in that, because that's my own little publishing experience. I do the photography and the design and the web design and the writing, et cetera, et cetera. But I would love to focus more on the content distribution aspect of publishing, maybe for books, maybe for a magazine, but something like that is what I really love, and it's what I'm going to school for. As for a place, I would see Greenville or Nashville, both my dream cities.
All right.
I love them so much.
So you've spent time in the upstate, obviously. It's just a beautiful spot. Tell me about Nashville. What's the connection there?
Well, if you've ever heard of Thistle Farms, they're a nonprofit for women recovering from human trafficking, addiction, and prostitution. It's incredible. They're based in Nashville. They have a line of home and body goods that the women produce themselves, and all the money goes back into the program. So Tenacious Grace, which is my mom's nonprofit, is a sister organization with Thistle Farms. So we've made several trips over to Nashville, and I just love the culture of the city. It's incredible. Thomas Nelson is based there, which is a big Christian publishing house. And really, just a lot of publishing, actually specifically Christian publishing, is based in Nashville just because it's a big city with a large Christian population.
That sounds like perfect for you.
It is.
And
I
not
love
too
it.
far away from home. Mm-hmm. Well, let's kind of land the plane now. A lot of times I end these interviews with a discussion of a resource. I think one of the best things we can do for each other is just share the things that are building us up, helping us to be better people. We talked about this before we hit record, and you were like, I got tons.
I love resources. I'm a reader, like I said.
So
I'm
give me your
podcast listener.
top three, maybe. Or
Oh,
whatever.
top three. Okay. First of all, a book absolutely everyone should read is Emotionally Healthy Spirituality by Pete Scazzaro. Amazing. Changed the game because it's really about how I think the church has missed emotional health in the pursuit of spiritual health sometimes, and how truly they cannot exist without each other.
Right.
You cannot be spiritually healthy while remaining emotionally unhealthy.
You can pretend to be.
Yeah, but
a
you
lot of people
cannot
do,
really
but it doesn't
be.
work. Right.
And so really the integration of them in a super Jesus-focused way really changed the game to me. I reference that book constantly. Secondly, just this is a current recommendation, especially for the end of 2020, for the end of such a chaotic year, the Next Right Thing podcast with Emily P. Freeman. Love it. She is a presence of peace. I mean, she speaks so much peace into decision making, into overwhelm, and just helping you choose your next right thing in love. As she said, she is also a Christian. And thirdly, right now, I'm going through the book Honest Advent by Scott Erickson, aka @Scott the Painter on Instagram. And he is doing an amazing job of creating a visual vocabulary for the Christian life. And so just seeing the story of Jesus' birth and coming to this earth in such a new visually engaging way, as well as just his beautiful words, that's been really encouraging to me.
@Scott the Painter.
That's
All
got
right.
the
Well,
pain.
we're gonna add all those links to those resources at the bottom, and I appreciate that so much. Again, that's gonna bless a lot of people. And I want to just ask you to come back again sometime. We want to keep up with what's going on with you. We wish you well in Anderson University, and thank you so much for spending time with Radio Free today.
Absolutely. I would love that. Thanks for having me.